This is Sue Greenwald with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr with the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Today's surprise topic is Charles Lindbergh. Yay! So we had done a very interesting video on Amelia Earhart, and she was friends with Charles Lindbergh, who was wildly popular in 1900s. So I'm going to do a little overview of his life and then ask some questions. Okay, so Charles Lindbergh was born in the early 1900s. His father was a congressman. So there's some salient points I want you to notice. His father was a congressman, all right, Charles Lindbergh. He went into the military, did a whole bunch of things. He was highly decorated. And in 1927, he did the first nonstop flight from New York to Paris. It was 33 hours of flying. He was wildly celebrated. Okay. It was a very, very big deal. Okay. Because back then we didn't have the air flight that we do now. Okay. If you wanted to travel, you had to use a ocean liner. Okay. Now, salient point number two. In 1931, this is a very odd fact. He helped to design a pump used for heart surgeries and organ transplants. Like what? Okay, let's move on. Third salient point. In 1932, his son Charles Jr. was kidnapped and murdered. That was a very, very big deal. The country went wild, okay? And so what happened is it led to a new law where they could go across state lines to, track down a bad guy if they needed to. All right. So again, his claim to fame was he flew from New York to Paris. That was the biggest deal ever. I mean, everyone knew his name. He was so popular. He was so valued in America. But he did a whole bunch of other things. He won awards, blah, 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 blah. But I just wanted to point out those three facts. Okay. Um, is that your basic understanding of the story?
Yes.
Okay. Is that basic story true?
Some of it. Um, so there was more to him than just the flying. As you can tell, creating a pump, you have to know a little bit more about the human body
Yeah.
than the basics. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just go from flying over to medical.
Yeah.
So he definitely had more backgrounds than, what was publicized. So having that medical background, he was able to develop that. Um, but from what I am getting is he was actually replaced
Oh,
when he was on his, I don't know if it's before or when he was on his flight, it looks like he was replaced. He was taken out and a clone was put in.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. Okay, so that's why I wanted to bring up these 3 points. Son of a congressman. All right, even at that time, 100 years ago, we still had rampant corruption in our government. And a
Hmm.
lot of those guys with wealth and power got there by doing nefarious things.
Hmm.
Right. So that was my point. Um,
Yeah.
so when you say he was taken out mid-flight, did they stop the plane and take out Charles Lindbergh A and put in the clone there, or how did they do it? Was it like a
No, it was a
real-
natural switch. It was just like a instance.
yeah,
Like he was there and then somebody else was there.
okay.
Looks exactly the same, has all the information, but the switch was so natural. But like I said, it's all the information. It's the same look, it's the same thought process. It's pretty much just a clone.
Yeah.
Just that person didn't actually do all those things.
All right. So the original body, the original person, is that person still alive?
No.
Okay.
What I see is he was taken out and he was tortured. There
Ooh,
was there was something that some sort of information or something he had that they wanted. That's why they did the switch.
Okay. Boy. All right. So this clone had the same knowledge and whatever. So he fit right into his life beautifully. And that's
Yeah.
probably why he did this heart transplant pump thingy, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so he had more of an understanding on how, like, there was some base knowledge, there was some sort of medical skill he had, but the clone was able to understand it better and was able to develop something. So it's they've had clones out for a while, and there are clones that are capable of living human-like lives and being very human-like. So he was a good substitute. Obviously, it didn't last so much longer.
right, okay. So he made this flight. The clone finishes the flight. So he's popped in instantaneously. He takes the flight, they land outside of Paris. The world goes wild. So a lot of fun, tomfoolery, celebration. And then he evidently met somebody over in Paris that helped him work with this pump, heart surgery and organ transplant pump. Now, why would they want someone like him to work on a pump like that?
I don't think it was planned.
Oh,
I don't think their plan was for him to work on a pump. Because really, I mean, it's so random. Like you're going from flying to a pump.
yeah,
So there's a lot of questions surrounding just, what their thought process is with jumping over to that. I think it was just the clone had this information and was interested in pumps and that mechanical structure on how to build it. And it just went from one thing to the other. I don't think that was ever part of anybody's plan. I think their plan was to switch him out so nobody would know that one, he was missing or gone, get what they needed from him because yes, the clone has like his memories and his information, but there's some stuff that they can't fully recreate. And it was something that he had that they needed. I don't know specifically what, but they wanted him for a purpose, like the actual person. So the clone was just a replacement, so people didn't.
oh, the sound just went off. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you
cool.
hear me?
Yeah, yeah. So, do you think his father had anything to do with this? His father was a congressman.
No, his father did not have anything to do with it, but some of the stuff he got him into caused it. Okay, so it wasn't necessarily the father, it was uh what is it? It looked like he was well, what's the word? In cahoots. He was
Yeah.
in cahoots with somebody and um somehow he decided to get into this information. I don't know what it is. I keep feeling it's information, but it feels deeper than that. It feels like he took something. And I'm not seeing what it was. It feels like it's really big information. But what he did is he took this from them, and so those people were after him. So the father was not necessarily involved, but because he introduced them, he kind of
Yeah.
has association.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe it was
That's
an
all.
artifact or something, but it's all good, you know.
What is
Yeah.
it?
Maybe it was an artifact. Who knows?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So the clone goes over, he flies, he lands, becomes wildly successful, develops this heart pump, blah, 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 gets married, and supposedly has a baby. Okay.
mhm.
Then the baby is kidnapped and murdered. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously not a good thing. But was that murder of the baby a sacrifice?
what I see is actually a mixture of sacrifice and also you got to think if it's a clone and now a clone's made a baby, there's a lot of unknowns. So there was something special about that baby that was so unknown that it made more sense to them to do that than allow it to be. Um, so
Oh.
that's what I'm getting from it.
So the clone was able to have a baby.
Hmm. Which is not really too. Oh, I cannot speak.
Too
It
common.
wasn't heard of. It wasn't common, and it wasn't known that clones could do that. So they haven't had that issue. So it's kind of like a first of its kind issue.
Wow. Okay. So basically they kidnapped the baby and killed it so that way nobody would I don't know what kind of abilities it had, but nobody would suspect.
Exactly.
Oof. Okay. Wow. Did the clone know he was a clone?
No,
Oh,
he thought everything was natural. Um, it's it's hard because most clones don't really know they're clones because they're supposed to kind of just blend in cohesively. So giving that information of, hey, you're a clone doesn't really help them feel natural or like they're part of whatever they're supposed to be doing. So keeping that secretive is usually part of their plan, so that way they can fit in discreetly.
right. That makes sense because, otherwise it would be acting and they would be more likely to slip up.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Anything we need to know about the kidnapping? So that was basically to prevent people from finding out about the clone and the baby's abilities. Were the abilities supernatural, like that kind of ability, or
To us, it would be supernatural.
yeah,
But I see it being, you know how I talked earlier about kind of accessing DNA? It was able to change appearances. It had more of the access to how its DNA was structured. So it would be able to alter things about himself. And as it gets older, one, it's going to lose more control of that.
yeah,
Because it looked like it was emotionally charged. But two, it started to raise questions, and then not only would they look into the baby, they'd look into the family, and then so on and so forth. So there
yeah.
would be a lot of snooping.
Yeah. Okay. Because think of it this way, father's a congressman, so there's wealth and power. And then the
Mhm,
guy flies across, the Atlantic, wealth and power. Okay.
mhm.
So they were prominent, it was a prominent family, you know.
Yeah,
Interesting. Anything else we need to know about this story?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Um, I feel like that's a good chunk. I don't want to,
Yeah.
over people.
Yeah.
But if you have more questions or if people have more questions, always ask. That way we can circle back to it and I can get more information
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
whoever wants it.
Super fascinating info, right? So all these little points in history, like these mysteries and these things we've been told, so interesting what the truth really is, isn't it?
It is. Because
Yeah,
like I said earlier, it's we're told certain things and we just go with what we hear because it's repeated, it's pushed down our throats. So if you feel, what I'm saying is incorrect, if you feel like what you've heard in the past is incorrect, do your own research, get your own information, and do what instinctually feels right to you.
yeah,
Because you and your instincts are always going to lead you down a good path
right.
as long as you're listening.
Yeah. So I would say question everything, for people. Don't believe any stories because pretty much nothing we've been taught is true. Right.
Yeah,
And so we're
exactly.
doing these by intuition, like, told the topics to do, and now we know why. We're uncovering these kind of things.
Mhm.
Super interesting. All right. Well, thank you so much, Deanna. I appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good
All right.
day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.